Hi, welcome to High Valley. Today I will interview Q. Q is a Thai product designer at Elephant. Elephant is a digital design agency in San Francisco. Hi Q, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you for being here. So Q, I would like to ask you, what was your professional path until you got this job at Elephant?
I started all the way back in Thailand. I got onto this program, an exchange program with my college, which is in Milwaukee. And from Milwaukee on, we moved to New York, and I got my first ever job there as a digital designer. We focus on e-commerce websites at the time. The agency is called King & Partners. And from there, I joined H.I.G.H, and then Elephant, and then we moved to San Francisco.
So you were always on the path of being a digital designer?
Not quite. So I started out as a very traditional graphic designer, so doing a lot of logo designs, identity system, and that was like my kind of where I want to be headed out of school. But because I'm on this work permit visa situation, when I moved to New York, the job that I could get, which is the at King & Partners, was they focus just solely on digital e-commerce websites, and that's how I get into the digital track. It was also like 2010, which is at the time where the print design was kind of dialing down, and the digital era was kind of on the rise. So I got to learn a lot of things from there, and then I just stuck with it. It's just a much more appealing discipline for me, because it's moving all the time. You always get new things to learn, and it just have a lot of my creative interests kind of combined into one.
So you have this experience working in digital design companies in New York and now in San Francisco. What do you find so attractive of working in the San Francisco area?
I think what I really appreciate about working here is that people really take their time to really think through the problem, to really identify what is the right problem to solve and what is the best way to solve it. I think it's not that New York didn't do that or didn't do that well. It's just that I think it takes a lot more energy to get people to align, because they're moving so fast. In New York, I was on this crazy timeline on almost every project. We would handle multiple projects all at once, and it's just different. I think you came out with a better quality of work when you really think through the problem and focus your effort on the right things.
When you see job openings, you see that they look for interaction designers, visual designers, product designers. What's the difference?
Interaction designers and visual designers, for me, interaction designers, they touch on a lot of the strategy in the research phase leading up to the design. And then for visual designer, the expectation is different in that once they have all those strategy and research, how do they make that as visually as interesting as possible, or have it be branded according to the company? But again, these are just titles. I think at different companies, they have different working models, and the title might shift. For example, a lot of the agencies today, they just call you product designer, and then the expectation is that a little bit of interaction design, a little bit of graphic design and visual design, and then you can do a bit of research and all of that. So I think it really differs based on the company you're at.
And how do you get to know what the company needs? If they say, we are looking for a product designer, how do you know the skills they are looking for?
I think more often than not, these tech companies within Silicon Valley, they usually have their own design hub, like a design platform. They write about how they think about design or how they think about technology. And even reading a bit of the job posting and following their, what they're doing out in the world would help you understand a lot on where their head is at. For example, at Airbnb, right, they have this the C-suite position is CPO, which is a Chief Product Officer. And so for them, they really kind of adopt that mentality of being a generalist, and great products came from knowing all these things together, and then as opposed to having one specialist, so 2 or 3 specialists that try to bust their heads against the wall and come up with a an aligned solution. So like for a company like that, they're all for intense collaboration between generalists.
So doing a good research on each company that you want to apply is key.
Definitely, yeah.
So as a designer, you need to have a portfolio in order to apply. What do you think agencies and recruiters in general in the Silicon Valley area expect to see in a portfolio?
I can't really speak for what product company is looking for, but I can speak a bit about what agency is looking for. I think you really need to have that wow factor in your portfolio, just something that almost differentiate you from all the other ones. Beyond good work, of course. Just the way you show the work. Coming to the client with that wow factor, having a really beautiful portfolio. I almost see it as an extension of just something to bring you in the door, and then all the rationale and everything else will come faster. I think it's also, again, knowing your audience and knowing what company you're trying to target, because I think most recruiter at agencies just go through portfolios so quickly. They just want to see as much as possible, as quickly as possible. They sometimes just pass off these work to a security director who might not have time to even look at them or read them. They just want to scroll through the site really quickly, see if you're skilled at the level they're looking for, and then bring you in afterwards.
So you show a very beautiful portfolio and then you go to the interview. Do they check if you are able to solve problems in their interview, or they don't do that in so much depth?
Again, I think it really depends on the company. I think for a lot of the agencies in New York, you have a very specific role you're supposed to fulfill within a certain company. Like if you apply for a visual designer, when I did that in New York, they didn't really ask about the problem solving quite as much, because they know that from my experience, I didn't have a role in solving those problems. However, I think if you go to say a product company that are known for their generalist, it's quite different, because then they definitely want to know that you know what the problem is and how you intend to solve them with these rationale and design solutions.
And in your opinion, what are the 3 or 2 musts that you have to have in a portfolio?
For me, a design portfolio piece is not just about how great the work looks, or if the work is really successful or interesting. I think it's also how you play the role on that project. In your circle of designers that executing the work, what did you do to move it, to move the quality up, or to move the work in a certain direction that might not be possible without you there?
What should be the must-nots of a portfolio?
I say don't lie. I think that's just be honest with where you are. I think a lot of people just say they did more than they actually did. Mm-hmm. Being honest is way more important than being impressive when it comes to portfolio.
You said before you are a generalist and you are a product designer, so you have a very wide set of skills. How do you decide what skill to develop next, and what is your learning process?
Sure. So for me, it's not really like I wake up one day and I have to learn how to code now because that's everybody is doing. That's never been how I pick up new skills. For me, self-awareness is very important, not just from you as a talent, but also on the project, and what you're missing, what gaps are there, and learning new skills for me is about filling in those gaps. I prototype a lot, and I think on many of the projects I'm on, people try to utilize me as a prototyper and try to match me to a role, but that was never really why I learned prototype. I learned prototype so that I can design the right things to be built, so that I can test out whether my design solution is the right one or not. I think that's what it means to be a generalist, is that you have a T-shape. You have one area which you really focuses on, and then all the other stuff are just things to help support that pillar. Because when you're building something, anything, not even digital products, like if you're building a chair, it's really hard to design a good chair without knowing how it's going to be build, right? You can draw the chair, but if you don't know how much the wood weight, if you don't know how these materials will operate, or even if the material exists, or the cost of each, it's really difficult to make a well-designed chair that stay within the cost range that you're aiming for, and that would appeal to customers, and that is comfortable and beautifully designed. I think to be a passionate or a good product designer, you kind of have to have a passion for both, I'd say. And I think in terms of, there's definitely a barrier that you have to kind of go over until you feel comfortable with the entirely different discipline. And I'm very fortunate in my career that I have a lot of people to help me, and I ask a lot of questions. And I remember when I first joined H.I.G.H that I would sit with the visual design team. I try to grab lunch with a developer team, like a development team. And I'll grab coffee with the user experience team, the UX team, ask them about, how they, do their own role. And when you do that enough time, over a year, you learn a lot.
So let's say I am called for an interview in a digital design company. How do I present a past project in an interview?
If you go in, with the mindset that, I'm going to show the most prettiest thing to get me in the door, now that you're in the door, I think your approach would be totally different. When I interview people, I like to ask them to go through from the beginning to end on how project was initiated, what was your role in the project, and the conclusion of that. Again, whether it's a success or a failure doesn't really matter to me. It's how you operate within that project. And most specifically, what I look for in an interview like that, or I think what most agencies look for in an interview like that, is really what details that you couldn't really put into your portfolio or in your book. Something that might be really hard to explain, something that might be, limitations around the client engagement that led you down this path, just details that, help you grow or help you pivot as a designer. And I always ask people, how would you, if you have more time, you have more money and resources, how would you change what you did? What would you have done differently?
Many designers that are abroad and tech professionals in general feel very intimidated of coming to work in the Silicon Valley, and they think people here are so awesome that it's very challenging. What do you think is the most challenging thing to work in the Silicon Valley area?
It's actually about solving problems and solving business problems in particular. And each company have a very different business problem to solve in the problem space that they're in the business that they're in. And through the process of design, more often than not, the goal and the problem would shift slightly. And when you present that back to the business or trying to sell through the design, it's very important that you have them aligned to that goal. You have them aligned to, we went down on this path, but then we discovered something different, and now our goal has shifted and we can solve this problem. We solve all these 3 other problems as well. I think when that, come into view, it's very, very difficult for me to align them back to the new goal, to align them to the right goals that would solve a lot of business problems within the company.
You talk a lot about knowing how to solve business problems.
Mm-hmm.
Do you read about other topics not directly related to design or technology that are useful to your career?
I read a lot about how human thinks, and I think when you do that, psychology really. When you do that, it helps so much with design, because at the end of the day, the business are trying to sell things to people. And so when you understand how the people think, you sort of understand how the business makes money.
You're telling me that you read about psychology because design is oriented to people, to customers. And we are talking now about user-centric design. What is your approach? What is your view about design in general?
It's a very broad term, but I think ultimately design we're born out of the necessity to market things, to sell things. And I think as the industry move forward, we often forget that. And it's great that we solve user problems and people's problems, and we make it beautiful. But if we can align that back to the business ask or the business requirement, then it dies. No matter how well it performs, no matter how beautifully executed it is, it just won't go through. So I think it's really, really important that we see two sides of things, not just from a user-centric perspective, but also from the business as well. I feel like if you can identify that, no matter where you are in the world, you will be valuable, not just to Silicon Valley, but any company that want to be more efficient, want to touch more people, and really use design as a driving force to success.
Q, what is your professional dream as a designer?
That's a tough one. Ultimately, I just want to do good work. Just one piece of good work that are really truly for the people. I wish that one day I could be a part of that.
Awesome. Q, it was great talking to you. I would like to speak more. Unfortunately, we don't have the time, but thank you for being here.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. If you liked our channel, feel free to subscribe, to like it, or to share it. Thank you.